Nigerians have gifts the world cannot ignore. Wherever we go, we carry scarcely matched abilities to spark joy, turn little into plenty, and leave our marks of excellence in music, sports, fashion, art, the list goes on. For us, greatness is not merely an aspiration. It is something we carry in our DNA. While we take pride in all of these and proudly fly the flag of all the good things about us as a people, we still grapple with a values problem. If we are to hold our elected officials accountable, then we have to be willing to confront ourselves and the ways we contribute to the problem that exists. After all, it is citizens who become public officials and leaders in government. What if we all choose to do what is right? Welcome to another episode of the Leading Woman Show Season 4, themed The Nigeria We Want. Brought to you by our partners, the National Endowment for Democracy and Luminate. I'm your host, Abosede Jojogan. In this episode, titled Mindset and Values Reorientation, we're addressing one of Nigeria's most pressing challenges, a systemic values crisis that has eroded our collective moral foundation. Today, along with our guests, we will explore what a mindset and values reorientation looks like and the role of collective responsibility in taking and demanding accountability. Please welcome with me, Bankole Williams, a management consultant, peak performance coach, and founder of LYD Consulting and the Live Your Dreams Africa Foundation, specializing in human capacity development and behavioral change. He leverages neuro-linguistic programming and his science of outstanding results methodology to help individuals and organizations achieve excellence. Widely recognized for his impact in the banking sector, he's also celebrated for advancing youth empowerment and driving social development in Nigeria. We also have Winifred Nwanya, a culinary entrepreneur and personal development coach who has successfully built two transformative brands, Zilicious Foods and Winnie's School of Excellence. As the founder of Zilicious Food, she became a household name across Africa and beyond, using food as a tool to inspire joy, creativity, and connection. Building on that foundation, Winifred expanded her impact through Winnie's School of Excellence, a purpose-driven institution committed to equipping individuals with the tools they need to live intentionally, confidently, and successfully. We also have Habiba Balogun, an organization effectiveness consultant with nearly 2 decades of experience spanning management consulting, human resources, corporate affairs, learning and development, and leadership coaching. She holds a BA in French and Italian from the University of London and an MA in organizational management from the George Washington University in DC. Habiba has worked with clients across the US, UK, Europe, Africa, and Asia, bringing expertise in diversity, inclusiveness, and team facilitation. Finally, please welcome Eric Gugwa, a digital creator, educator, and blockchain expert, recognized for his insightful contributions to the tech community. Through engaging content and thought leadership, he has built a strong following while promoting personal development and innovation. Eric has established himself as a successful influencer in blockchain and digital content creation, exemplifying how passion and technology can drive impact and success. I'm sure you cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So let's dive welcome to today's episode where we're discussing mindsets and values reorientation. And I'm really excited to have these amazing guests with me to have this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Really good to have all of you here. And I'm excited about this conversation. So our theme this season is the Nigeria we want. And I do not think that we would have done justice to that theme if we don't have this conversation about mindsets and values reorientation. So I want to start with a question, all right? And Habiba, I want to start with you.
Okay.
What is your current assessment of our value system as a people?
So, I'm a divergent thinker and a lateral thinker too. So I never kind of go with the what
Please,
they say
go
the
anywhere
grain
you
is,
want
okay?
to be. You want
So
to go.
I don't think we have a problem with values in Nigeria. I think we have a problem with what is rewarded. Okay?
Say more.
And Nigerians are about survival, they're about resilience, they're about adaptation. So the structure we have in place right now rewards certain behaviors and stuff. And so that's what people are doing. I don't think we've let go completely of our African values and our moral values and our values as human beings. I don't think so at all. When we have an opportunity, whether you're young or old, to do the right thing without a cost, a severe cost to you, I see people doing the right thing.
Bankole, do you agree? Or do you meet only good Samaritans?
That's very interesting. I wasn't expecting it was coming. But when you live in a nation where there are faulty systems that should sustain values, right, you would have problems. So somebody is dealing with extreme poverty, right? If there are no alternative pathways for a proper livelihood, he would be in survival mode and will think that what belongs to another belongs to him, right? So I see that perspective, right? But I also see that we haven't clearly, as a nation and as a people, articulated what our values or what authentically should resonate with the Nigerian person out there, right? And if we don't have what has been clearly defined, that we demonstrate in the family, in society, I think that there will be a problem. I think as a nation, we haven't clearly articulated, what
defined.
our own values are, let alone have a system, like she said, that will encourage those values.
Interesting. Winifred, what would you add to that?
I have an interesting perspective to it because for me, I don't see things from a nation's perspective. I'm more about an individual perspective. So regardless of the nation I'm in, what are my personal values?
Right.
I've experienced people personally who, they know the right things to do, but then they don't do it, even when they have the opportunity to do the right thing. So for me personally, I wouldn't look at things from a society perspective because even when you go to so-called civilized societies where the system seems to be working, people still don't uphold the right values. So I think it's a personal thing. What are your values? What are my values? So even when I find myself in a very challenging situation that should make me
Act out of character or something.
exactly, or
Yes.
stay disloyal to my values, regardless of that situation, I'm still going to choose to stay loyal to what I believe is true.
Yeah.
For example, I'm a young lady, and I like to consider myself very intelligent and beautiful. And in the society we live in, we know how, no shade to the men. Here, right? When you approach a man or when you are trying to do maybe a business with a man, the
Yes.
first thing on his mind, not all men,
Yes.
the first thing on their mind is, oh, they want to have some sexual relationship
Yes.
with you.
Because it's a value system.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So if
it's a norm. It has been
Thank you.
normalized to see women in a certain way.
So when I find myself in that situation, and maybe whatever it is that I want out of the relationship is something that is very dearing to my heart, I step back and I'm like, am I willing to give up my value for whatever? Should I go do what they expect of me or want me to do, and then I'm going to exchange my value for that? No. And because of that, I step away. And yeah, I may lose that opportunity, but I have retained my value. So I
That's
think
right.
for me, it's more of a
at
From
the
an
self, at the level of
individual
self.
level, yeah.
And I think just adding on to that, it's the many selves of us that decide to do right that then form this national value.
society.
Eric,
Thank
what
you.
would
That's
you
true.
add to that?
I don't think there is much to add to that, too.
What is your perspective?
Listening to
Or your
the-
current assessment of our values as a people?
Like Winnie said, I tend to look at value and culture on a personal level, but even more than that, on a family level, because I'm a very big. My ideas about family drive most of my thoughts. I think that it still is. They taught us in primary school. It's the nucleus of society.
Of society, yes.
And so what we get right on that level really does affect what we see in society.
Absolutely.
So I would say this, irrespective of what we see on social media, what's popular on some place like social media, it's truly not a reflection. And I say this, there's a balance to it, but it's not a full reflection of the life of the everyday Nigerian.
True.
Social media is full of very loud minorities, right? And so while it is not a great judge of what the average is, it can be a great influencer.
Absolutely.
Right? So I believe that, yes, there's still quite a number of people who are holding on to their values at great cost. A great cost to themselves,
Right.
to self-advancement and gratification. But yes, social media may tell a different story. We may see a different story trending, but to a very large extent, I think that we are still a people of culture. Yes, it just remains to be seen how that is interpreted.
At scale, I
Yes,
guess.
at scale.
And Habiba, I think that brings me back to what you said about, and I want to talk about how do we confront these poor values, especially when we excuse it as survival, right? People almost feel they have permission to misbehave in our society. I think that's the part that's concerning, right? Where it's like I'm justified to act like this because I'm hungry, right? You said it, there's poverty. So how do we confront these poor values? Are there certain things that need to happen before the other, right? Because what I'm hearing you and Eric say is that what is loudest might be the poor values, but fundamentally we still have our values. However, we're hearing about family members kidnapping family members for ransom. We see the greed and corruption in our society. And to your point, that's what gets the limelight. And that's what influences the majority. So how do we confront these poor value systems and not just excuse it as survival?
That's a really tough one. And thank you for the points you made, Eric, about the minority voices speaking louder. And I think that's why we need more platforms like this to showcase what is positive and what we think is right or the right way to live. To balance the stories. That's something I want to take up with media, actually, news media. That as much as we must highlight the problems in our and put pressure, we should also give hope, because so many people are depressed, they don't watch the news anymore.
Absolutely.
Right? And they need to watch the news. So we need more balanced reporting. I think what we can do about these poor values is showcase that, okay, let me do a personal story. I'm somebody who, starting with the family, it was hammered into your head. You don't have a choice about, okay, look around you, absorb family values. No, it was deliberately infused, by fire, by force, infused in you. And so I grew up and I'm holding on to my values. I'm not giving bribes. I'm trying to do things properly. I'm sacrificing for the result, all that sort of stuff. And I'm seeing other people just fly.
Yes, that's exactly how
I'm seeing my peers just like taking off. And I'm seeing other people like us, Mumu. You're just doing your job, doing the right thing, taking your role as if it's your own business, as if it's your own family behind. And I went to speak to an elder and I said, look, I feel like a fool. He's successful, and that's the importance of mentors too.
Yes.
And he told me to go and read a book called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, which is very important because right now we're seeing how some empires are tottering right now.
Absolutely,
So he
across the
told me
world.
to go and read The Rise and Fall. It's 3 massive books, but I like reading, so I read them. And that was all he told me to do. And basically, it's like,
Please tell us the
if
summary.
you check the trajectory of somebody's life, forget about an empire now. That mumu who's just quietly doing the right thing, or being overlooked for promotion, not getting the contract, but working hard, gradually, they don't have to wait 50 years. Just check their trajectory over 15 years, over 25 years. Compared to their peers who went like, they were going like this, who went like this, up, crashed. Then they got another appointment, got up, crashed. Then they cheated somebody and they were bawling, crashed. Their end tends to be worse than their beginning. And the mumu, his end or her end, 100 times better than more than they could have ever dreamed. They look at themselves and saying, is this me?
Yeah.
Is this me? And that was the point he was trying to make.
Yes.
That when you are consistent and you stick with your
Consistency.
principles, you will get there. You might not get there fast, but you'll
you
get
will
there
get-
and you can sleep, nobody is chasing you.
Right.
So I think that might be
Yes.
one way, showcasing those stories of not the
So
celebrities.
more of that
yeah.
and not the negatives.
Yeah.
So Eric, I want to come to you and talk about that the louder voices online. And you know, I had never thought about that they were silent majority, as you said. How do we, you know, it really, you know, some people talk about the comment section. Have you paid attention to the comment section? I know there's something now called comment section, but that worries me just as an observer. And actually, unfortunately, that's the data that I'm collecting on our collective values. So I guess my question is, what do we need to do to actually have maybe, because they say the challenge, how you counter narratives by countering it literally. What do we need to do online on that social media space? Because we have a young generation as a population. And let's be honest, they're going to be paying attention to those things, even from the rural areas. I know we argue that, but internet penetration is really, it has penetrated Nigeria. So what do we need to do so that we have as many people potentially who are influencing people in the right way, as many as the ones whose voice are loud and are influencing people negatively?
I think your question kind of like already answers it. And what I mean by that is we need voices. But in as much as I know that we need voices speaking on these spaces, I also know that the real work is in mentorship. And like I would say sometimes, you don't mentor people from the pulpit. You can't mentor people from the stage. Mentorship is in the details. Mentorship is done, you know, on the one-on-one basis in life, in the living. That's where
Is there no way
mentorship
technology
is.
can scale mentorship?
So first of all, what we are witnessing is a breakdown of civilization. What we are experiencing is a breakdown of people in our ability to interact with each other without resorting to conflict or without resorting to harming somebody else in order to get ahead. So we are losing civility and getting to, and something that is very central to the idea of civilization is prosperity, right? Because when you begin to take prosperity away, people start to think in terms of self, preservation,
That's
survival.
right.
And then you would find that in that setting, I don't have a problem hurting somebody, or I could have a problem, but I would feel like I don't have a choice. I have to harm some other person
Absolutely.
in order to derive value or preserve my own self. But here's the very interesting fact. Prosperity must be defined, right? Because I heard something once and it changed how I thought. Somebody said this. He said, it is better to not need something than to own it. And I have never seen possession the same way again. It is better to not need a thing than to be in possession of it. Wow. And that's such a powerful way to look at life.
Wow.
Right? It's
Wow. Wow.
like it's because one thing that we see on social media and on screens generally is we've seen on an industrial scale, industries and entrepreneurs, well, it's not all bad, but we've seen businesses trying to define what luxury is, what prosperity is, what comfort even is. And these suggestions, they are suggestions, but they are instructions.
Absolutely.
And they are very powerful.
And they inform our aspirations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the word. They inform our aspiration. And so what work can we do?
Exactly.
It still has to be done. So while we need voices in these spaces, voices. So the role of the pastor, for instance, when he comes to church on Sunday and he shares the word, that's not mentorship, but that's crucial to mentorship.
Absolutely.
So that role cannot go extinct. He must keep speaking the word.
He or she.
He or she
Yes.
must keep, absolutely. she must keep speaking the word, right? And what that does is it creates, because it takes a conversation, it takes sometimes even something as short as a statement to
Absolutely.
change someone's mind on something.
Yes.
So what you're doing is not just teaching the people, you are also in that moment raising teachers as well. So you're making the job easier, right? So now it's not just on you. This is why we need voices. It's not just on the speaker to do the work of mentoring, but then in different smaller communities, in several other spaces, voices can glean from that wisdom, can glean from that understanding, that perspective, and be able to now break it down to the people who are coming up.
Absolutely. Wow. Bankole, I want you to, obviously we're solutioning now, right? We've seen what the outcomes are, and I always say it's a process, right? So it's what you impute that determines what you get out. How do we reverse engineer this entire thing so that we're getting more of the positive than the negative?
Again, I'd make reference to the family. It's interesting that generally, even in the world, parenting isn't an institution. A lot of parents just happen on parenting.
Yeah.
The real question is, how do we make these values aspirational, right? In the
Yes.
family structure,
Yes.
but also with our people, right? Are we celebrating our own when they exhibit these values? Or do we celebrate maybe a corrupt politician, right, when he displays wealth, and then we are all hailing him and it becomes the norm? How do we make the norm celebrating people who exude, these wonderful values that we want to institutionalize, right? So there's the family structure, but there's also what we need to do as a nation. The truth of the matter is, where there is extreme poverty, right, there can be the corruption of values, right? If you look at the most corrupt nations in the world, the bottom 20 nations are war-torn countries that have been fragile, they've had to deal with war and all of that instability. So there is actually a connection between that, right, and how corrupt a society would be. So as a nation, what are we doing to empower the youth and the young people? Over 70% of our population is below 30, right? So the National Orientation Organization in Nigeria, what are we doing to reorient the minds of people? What are our plans for job creation, for young people, for engaging their minds, right? And even with education, are we just teaching people technical skills and all that? But are we equipping them with the importance of these values? And really and truly, if our leaders do not exude these values, it then becomes a problem.
Absolutely.
I can learn something in school, but when you bring me into a system or a society where I see that my leaders are doing something contrary, right, we end up becoming what we behold.
Absolutely. So the family, the family, the school, but I mean, that point you landed on around the role model piece is really, really important. Winifred, can we talk a little bit about how our societal values really, and I think you started to speak about this earlier, has just made life difficult for women? You know, and I'm asking you that because I think there's an ongoing conversation that has started happening about us leaving the men behind. And so it's important for us to talk about it as society because, you know, when you don't wear the shoes, you don't know where it hurts. So I think from the perspective of, because I think we already have the foundation where a lot of the things, and I'll give an example. In the week where an elected female member accused another of sexual harassment or whatever it is, in that week alone, I got one-on-one confessions, and I'm not exaggerating, from 3 women who told me that they had been sexually harassed.
Wow.
But because it was a societal conversation, they felt they had permission, right? I remember one happening in a place where her boss was there, and she said, the only person who has ever sexually harassed me is in this office. And her boss could not believe it. And I argue that almost every Nigerian woman has been sexually harassed, but that's talk for another day. But I want us to talk about it because it is what society has normalized, permitted, enabled. And because we have men in our midst, some of them don't understand what we're talking about. So please, can you share?
So for me, I always say that beneath the surface, there is a deeper way to see things. And I would say that the problem we're experiencing now didn't start now. It started from way back. I personally witnessed my mom's generation and my grandmother's generation, I think even my great-grandmother. And what I saw with these women, their position, the way they lived, made me not want to be a woman. Yes. And then for the longest time in my life, growing up as a child, as a girl child, what I kept hearing was, you need to go to school, come out of school, marry a man. That's what completes your life. But again, remember I said something. When I was growing up, there was this voice inside me telling me, that thing you are hearing is not, it's not the truth. There's another way. And very early, I'm so grateful to God for this. I got a reorientation, not even from society, from this same inner voice I keep talking about. And the reorientation took me back to the foundation, to the source. What was God's original design for man and woman? In God's equation, was there anything like man, a division of man and woman? Was there, there's male and female, but what was the role of the male? What was the role of the female?
Right.
I didn't see anything of the patriarchy that we all now believe in from there, from the scriptures. And because I'm a big believer in the scriptures, I get a lot of my Bible, my life principles from there. So when I went in there, I didn't see any of that. And then the reorientation came when I realized that a man, the benefits, the privileges, the rights that a man has is the same benefits, privileges, and rights that I have as a woman. But unfortunately, society taught us differently for whatever reason, I don't know. And I'm not even going to stress my brain trying to figure it out.
Eric is going to tell us. Eric knows. Eric is going to tell us. Yeah.
But I just believe that we just need a reorientation of the mind, especially from the male perspective.
Yes.
This is not a patriarchy world anymore. Women are powerful.
Yes.
And I believe that we are so powerful that when I studied history and I've studied things that has happened and the vital roles women played, remove a woman from an equation, remove a woman out of an equation, and you'll be left with no shade to men, but there's going to be an incompleteness. Women have a vital role that we play in all sphere and aspect of life.
As it
we
should
can't
be.
take that away from them,
Absolutely.
from us. So I would say that men need to step into this knowledge of this knowing that women are valuable and we are very vital, not from a place of subordination, like you are higher than me and I'm here. No, we are both
Side
equal
by
in the
side.
grand scheme of things, in the eyes of the one who made us. So we start to respect each other's contribution, each other's values, each
Yes.
other's purpose. I think it's important for men to start to realize that women are more than just sex objects.
Important.
Can we please
You want it to just be
can we just
what we agree and conclude?
on that a woman is more than just for having sex and popping babies. Can we agree? Because when men, and the reason why a lot of men don't seem to have control over themselves is they see a woman and immediately automatically just assume and think,
Because that's how they've been
been
oriented.
taught.
That's why we have. Okay, this is a good time to go on a break. When we return, we will take question from the audience.
Thank you so much. It has been truly insightful and transformative for everyone here. So my question is, how do we begin to value integrity when we see dishonesty rewarded every day?
Let's start to take our clothes out and feel free to say, how do we reward integrity when we see dishonesty being rewarded every day? So I want to start with, what will be your top 3 values if we're to have the Nigeria we want? Habiba, let me start with you.
Okay, so my top 3 values, and we have them, but they are in the minority voices. They're the majority voices that are not speaking out loud. So one of them is integrity. And when I say integrity, I mean being reliable and being predictable. What you would do in your house in the dark when nobody is seeing is the same thing you would do out in public. People can say, this is what this person stands for, good or bad, right? Good or bad. So that's integrity. Integrity is not necessarily honesty, but people are who they say they are and do what they say they will do, and don't do what they say they will not do. So integrity is my number 1. The second one, which is compassion, which is putting yourself, having human feeling, which I think we have in abundance in Nigeria, having human feeling and allowing yourself to take steps to assist when you can, without cheating the rest of the public. So doesn't mean because of human feeling, human face, I will give a contract to somebody who is not capable, and then somebody else comes to the hospital and the saline solution they are getting is poor quality and they are harmed, or it's fake drugs.
Yes.
Okay? So helping where you can, but not to the detriment, not when it infringes on the right of somebody else. So have human feeling, show human face, but do the right thing as well. And then the third one is courage. And we have so many courageous Nigerians. We know them. Let's take it as a personal challenge to do what Peladrote did in the example that Bankole gave us. Not shrink. I'm taking it as a personal challenge. Not shrink away from pointing out to somebody, not in a judgmental way.
Yes.
That, sir, ma,
That thing.
please, you won't do this in your house. And I know you want Nigeria to be better. So please, let's not do this kind of thing. Young man, young lady, please stop doing that. Or parent, please let's have courage to intervene when we see things.
Absolutely.
So that's on the personal side. So those are my 3 values.
Fabulous. Eric?
The first one would be commitment to cause. And what I mean by that is it's got a little bit to do with integrity, but there are other things that make up this particular one. I don't know whether to call it a pandemic, but there are a lot of people. We have a pandemic of people who do not know how to follow through, right? We have a pandemic of people who don't know how to, if you give your word, you can get distracted from delivering on that, right? So I would like to see in our society people begin to value commitment again. The second one would be competence. It's something that it's beginning to die out. It didn't used to be like this, but it's getting worse by the day. And we can being somebody who's a business person and who's worked with business people, contractors, one thing I see is that we don't have a lot of skilled laborers who are competent. And we can complain all we want about not being able to meet certain financial goals and all of that, but competence is still something that I see is not common. And yes, we talk about skilled labor, or what we would refer to, I don't know what word there is in native languages, artisans.
Yeah.
They are such a backbone of the economy. They are such an integral part of every economy, and there are people that can be overlooked because of one thing or the other. Maybe in Africa, we don't pay them very, very much. Skilled labor is very well paid outside of these shows. And there is an anyhowness that Nigerians used to approach work. They don't see their work as an extension of themselves. They don't see their work, an individual piece of assignment, as connected to the larger set. We still view every bit of work as an individual thing, and not that it's connected to the next one and to the next one. And it's all these connections that make up your name. People who are into branding understand what that could mean. So the matter of competence is something that I think that we take lightly. And there's a part of competence that then encourages you to go and actually know how to do what you said you can do.
To commit to it.
To commit to learning. There's also a part of competence that talks about that. I'd want to see that. And finally, I think integrity is something that we can't compromise. And it's very beautiful the way that you put it as well. We can't compromise on integrity.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Eric. Winifred.
Okay, so for me, my top three, first one would be community love. Would I say communal love? The world was a better place when we all looked out for each other. And I think that by the creator's design, we're all supposed to work together to make Earth and each other not a better place. Earth is already beautiful.
Yes.
But it's the disorganization, the me that has made the Earth very disorganized and chaotic.
Yes.
And so I want to see more collaborations. Come together, stop competing, stop envying, stop being jealous of someone else. We all have individual purposes to fulfill.
That's right.
Focus on yours and be the best at it. Which takes me to the second, excellence. Mediocrity has taken center stage, Mediocrity has taken center stage, especially in this part of the world. And it just builds upon what Eric has said.
Yes.
Everybody just has a shallow way of approaching work. Nobody wants to do the deep work, put in the effort. Because yes, just like Eric said, the work you do is a reflection of yourself.
Absolutely.
And if you're looking at it from the grand scheme of things and the creator's perspective, your work affects the entire economy, affects the entire system. That thing you think you're doing in your kitchen, cooking food and showing the video to the rest of the world, has a major impact on the economy at large. So when you do it with excellence, do it with competence. It's very important that you're executing well. And my third one would be honesty. A lot of people have a way of being some way and then presenting themselves in another light. So I always say, sadly and unfortunately, we will never know what a person thinks in their hearts. Someone can come and laugh with you today, and then they go tomorrow behind you and they talk evil and negatively of you. So I'd say, can you be who you are everywhere? If something irks you, say that it irks you. Don't try to coddle it and romanticize it. If it's not something you sit well with, call it out for what it is immediately. Stand for something and stand for it with your full chest. Those are my three.
Thank you very much. All right, Bankole.
Okay. The first would be harmony.
Harmony. Oh,
Yeah.
such a beautiful word. Harmony.
Yes. And the way I look at harmony is to seek peaceful coexistence and not just personal gain. And I say this because, typical example, you live in a house that has several flats. Each flat has a diesel generator that can power the entire house. So we're generating more power than we actually need. And it's because we're just individualized. Everybody runs their own local government, right? But if we sought the good of the collective, right? If that was a consciousness that we had, then we would not waste resources like that. We would not think about just our own personal gain at the expense of another person, right? So yeah, the first would be harmony. The second will be integrity, pretty much like everybody has said. The way I see integrity is interesting that it comes from the same word for integrate. And I think a lot of people are not integrated. So they are saying something, but their heart is saying something totally different, right? To be integrated to me is that what you're thinking, what you are feeling, what you're saying, and how you're acting are one, right? So that we have integrity, that we align with what we truly believe, right? And we're able to speak up for it. And the last one would be also what Winnie has mentioned, and also he has mentioned, Eric, will be excellence. And I say this because mediocrity is just like the norm here. I sometimes ask people, one day it just hit me. I was like, I was with a group where there were a lot of people, and I was asking them, I said, please tell me the word for excellence in your language. And do you know that in most of our native dialects, people do not know the precise word for excellence? They'll give you a word that sounds like it, but they can't really think of the word, the precise word for excellence. So even if there's a word like that, it's not something that crops up frequently in conversation. How can we produce an experience that we don't have language for?
Wow.
Right? So it is important that we need to now go to the grassroots and really define what standards are and what it means to show up as your best self. Right? So those would be my three.
Wow. Look, this has been just such an amazing conversation. The future we want for Nigeria is not going to be a gift from its leaders, but a shared responsibility, shaped by the systems we operate and the values that we choose to enforce. I would like to thank our guests for their insightful contributions on today's episode. Thank you so much. And of course, to our audience for their incredible energy. And to our viewers for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and share your thoughts on today's episode using the hashtag #TheNigeriaWeWant. I'm Abosede Jojogan, and until the next episode, remember, women's leadership can change everything everywhere.